Hey, what's up, people? Welcome to my review and in-depth analysis of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Now, what has prompted me to do this review just all of a sudden? Well, it's because of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. No, I won't be watching that film because it's made by Disney, and I already know what's going to happen. Indiana Jones, he gets put down by his niece. Indiana Jones, his son is dead. Shia LaBeouf's character from this film, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, now he's dead. He died in Vietnam. He's about to get a divorce. In other words, he's a loser. Just like Obi-Wan Kenobi was a loser in his TV series on Disney Plus. Just like Luke Skywalker was a loser in Last Jedi. So you get it. There's a common theme here with these Disney films and how they treat legacy characters and how they treat male characters. And long story short, I don't want to see that. For me, Indiana Jones ended with this film. Now, that's not necessarily what prompted me to do this review. That's a little bit of it. But that statement that I just said, Indiana Jones ended with this film, a lot of people get rubbed the wrong way when a fan of this film says that, because a lot of Indiana Jones fans don't like this film, and they will say, no, Indiana Jones ended with The Last Crusade, when he and his father and comrades are riding off into the sunset. That was the end of the Indiana Jones trilogy, and they really emphasize on the trilogy aspect. Well, sorry, but I really like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I love Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. However, that's not to say that it doesn't have faults, because it does, and it has quite a number of them. However, it doesn't derail my enjoyment of this film. And one thing that really makes me passionate about this film, as far as being a proponent and trying to stick up for it, is when fans and maybe other individuals who watched this film or watched it and tried to like it and just couldn't, when they say, or when they scoff at the idea of aliens being in an Indiana Jones film, or they scoff at the idea of aliens coexisting with a story that has to do with archaeology. Now, for me, I really don't understand that, because for me, the Indiana Jones films, every single Indiana Jones film deals with fantastical, otherworldly things that go beyond the realms of archaeology. Archaeology is a science, right? So when you have things like magic Indian rocks and Shiva, like in the Temple of Doom, or you have things like the Abrahamic God killing the Nazis at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you have things like the cup of Jesus and the knight that's been given everlasting life. Like, I don't understand why that has more merit and more credibility as far as suspension of disbelief than aliens. Perhaps you don't know, but there's this whole genre called the ancient astronaut theory, right? In archaeology, even though it's frowned upon in the academic community, but a lot of people subscribe, or they're open-minded to those ideas. I mean, there's a whole television show on the History Channel that's just massive. It's so popular. It's like in season, maybe beyond season 10, called Ancient Aliens, right? I used to love that show, Ancient Aliens, right? So there's a lot of people that are open-minded to the notion of aliens visiting the human race in the past, and there's so many unknown and mysterious archaeological relics and artifacts and temples and pyramids that exist, and we still to this day do not know how they were created, right? As far as just the feat, just the physical feat of moving rocks that weigh hundreds of tons and things of that nature, right? But I digress, right? So I really like the ancient astronaut theory. I think it's fascinating, right? And I'm open-minded to it. And this is why I love films such as Stargate. Well, Stargate, that's another film that deals with archaeology and the ancient astronaut theory, right? It has aliens. Nobody scoffed at that, right? Everybody loved that movie. Everybody loved Stargate. It created a whole franchise, right? And and you have other films out there that deal with that as well, right? So I just don't understand why Indiana Jones cannot have aliens in it when the ancient astronaut theory is a thing. And that being said, my family come from Central America, right? So Central America, Mesoamerican culture is something that's always fascinated me. And let me tell you, Mesoamerican culture and Central Americans, they're very open-minded to the whole notion of UFOs and the ancient astronaut theory. The Mexican government has openly acknowledged the existence of UFOs. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I've met people from Central America that it's like nothing to them. They're like, oh yeah, we see them all the time. Like it's nothing, right? So this whole like skeptical mentality that exists in America, it's not as deep as it is. I mean, it's not like that. Rather, in like Central America and South America. I mean, I've always wanted to go and see the Nazca lines in Peru. So when I see this in this film, when I see the Nazca lines in Peru and how it's trying to connect it to the ancient astronaut theory, I love that stuff, man. I love it, right? And also the crystal skull. I mean, that's fascinating even in itself. And when I was in college, I wrote a whole paper about this. I wrote a whole paper about not necessarily aliens and stuff, but I wrote a paper about how Mesoamerican cultures and how they valued corn. And, think of the shape of corn, right? And then think of the shape of the crystal skulls, the elongated skulls, and how these cultures used to elongate their skulls to emulate the gods, and that the gods gave them corn, right? And that it's shaped in the form of the gods and all that stuff. And you start playing around with the idea, well, aliens got elongated skulls because of how we've seen them in some of these science fiction movies and whatever. It's fun. It's fun to play around with these ideas and be open-minded, right? I find it fascinating. So all of a sudden, in 2008, this movie comes along, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I go and I check it out. I love the Indiana Jones trilogy, the original three. Love them to death. And then I go and check out this movie, and even though it's flawed, it is definitely flawed, I had a blast. I enjoyed it. I really was like, I would cheese, man. I would have such a grin on my face when I saw Indiana Jones go to Peru, and you see the Nazca lines, and he has the crystal skull, and he talks about that. He talks about how these Mesoamerican cultures used to elongate their skulls to emulate the gods, and then Shia LaBeouf's character goes, "No, man, God's head doesn't look like that." I mean, I had a blast, man, and it really resonated with me because I always found the ancient astronaut theory to be fascinating. I loved that show, Ancient Aliens, when it first came out on History Channel. The first 3 seasons were great, but it's evident that they started to run out of ideas, and then they just started to make a bunch of shit up, man. They really have gone way out there. They're like in beyond season 10 or something, and every time I tune into an episode, it's just ridiculous now. At least in the first 2 or 3 seasons, they kind of had like actual archaeological artifacts to kind of like, theorize about. But now it's just like, well, what if zombies ruled the earth back in ancient times and aliens controlled the zombies? And it's just like, okay, yeah. But again, I'm going on a tangent now. So I always loved that ancient astronaut theory. So when I checked out Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I enjoyed it, right? And contrary to contemporary belief, because, you go to the Reddit forums, you see the comment sections of these YouTube channels that don't like this film, and they act like everybody hated this movie. It's very similar to the Star Wars prequels, right? There's like this thought from the people that don't like this film that the consensus is that everybody hates this movie. And I'm like, no. I clearly remember when this film came out, it got positive reviews from critics. And I mean the top critics, right? The top critics like New York Times and all. I mean, not that it matters. I don't really like Rotten Tomatoes, but you go on there right now and there's a fresh rating from the top critics, right? This film got positive reviews when it came out. It made money. I remember going to the theater. I saw this film in the theater 3 times, and the people that I talked with, they liked it. They enjoyed it. They didn't think too much about it. Like, I never really heard like aliens. It was ridiculous. All right. People enjoyed it. People enjoyed seeing Harrison Ford return as the character Indiana Jones. And you know what? He did an excellent job as far as I'm concerned. I think he was in his 60s around this time, and he did a great job for his age, man. I mean, now with Dial of Destiny, he's way too old. So not only is the film being made by Disney, and that's one of the reasons why I don't want to see it. Also, George Lucas, he's not involved. Steven Spielberg didn't direct. Another reason why I don't want to see it. But it's just that he's too old, man. Harrison Ford is too old, right? I don't want to see an old guy get put down by a younger female character, and I don't want to see him as a loser. He's divorced. His kid died, even though we had this happy ending and the Crystal Skull. It made me feel good. Seeing Indiana Jones get married, it made me feel good. He got his happy ending. Even though, yes, there was nothing wrong with The Last Crusade. That was a great ending as well. But my point is that I don't see anything wrong with Indiana Jones and aliens being in his movie, right? I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't understand, like, oh, this is ridiculous. Aliens? Why is that ridiculous, but not magic Indian rocks from the goddess Shiva? I mean, that's kind of hypocritical, in my opinion. Because if we're talking about archaeology as a science, what does Indiana Jones say in the first film? Archaeology is about the search for fact, not truth, right? So why all of a sudden are aliens a terrible idea, but like the Abrahamic God and magic Indian rocks are, oh yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's good. So that's my point. That's what made me want to make this review. I love this film because, like I said, I really enjoy the ancient astronaut theory, and I love Indiana Jones, right? So, hey man, it's the best of both worlds. So that's why I enjoyed this film. However, there are some real bad artistic decisions in this film. Like, I really enjoy the first 2/3 of this movie, right? Except for like maybe a couple things, right? But the last act of this movie it just feels like a cartoon, right? The action stops feeling realistic, right? And even the photography, it stops looking photorealistic, and things start looking CGI, and things start looking fake, and the action starts feeling cartoonish, with Shia LaBeouf swinging with monkeys vine to vine, and doing the fencing thing, and doing the splits between 2 cars. And it's like, compare that to the first 3 films, and it's just like, okay, I kind of understand. Like, if you don't like this film because of the artistic decisions, I get it. I totally do. And I can empathize with that more than people not liking it because there's aliens, right? But I totally get it. The last act of this movie stops feeling like Indiana Jones and starts to feel more like something like Brendan Fraser's like Journey to the Center of the Earth or something. Like, it starts to feel like the new Jumanji movies with The Rock. It starts to feel like wacky family fun adventure kind of thing. And remember, man, the first 3 Indiana Jones movies were brutal, man. I mean, it's surprising. I mean, Temple of Doom is one of the films one of the films that's responsible for the creation of the PG-13 rating. Because you got to go back, man. I mean, they were ripping out people's hearts. They were whipping kids. I mean, Indiana Jones is a killer, man. He's a murderer. I mean, go back and count how many people Indiana Jones kills in those movies, man. I mean, and he's like, remember that one time when he shot one bullet through like 5 dudes, and it's like, it's bloody too. It's not that they just like, oh, I'm shot, and they fall over. Like, no, you see blood and everything, right? So people's faces melting off. So that's one thing that fans of Indiana Jones always appreciated. Not only the practical effects, but just the realism, right? It was brutal. Indiana Jones was rough around the edges, right? Kind of like the original trilogy. So all of a sudden we come here and the last act of this film starts to feel like a cartoon. And I don't like it either, right? And for the most part, the first 2 acts of this movie are well done. They feel like Indiana Jones, straight up. Minus the whole refrigerator sequence, which we're going to talk about. Most definitely. And that was ridiculous, right? But to be fair, that scene, you also have to remember there was ridiculous stuff in the other Indiana Jones films as well. Particularly Temple of Doom, right? Think about it. Like, they jump out of a moving plane that's about to crash into this mountain and in a life raft, land on this mountain. And I mean, just that right there, it's like you would die. You would literally die because of the speed that you're traveling and stuff, man. So it's like, no, right? But let's just begin this review and in-depth analysis of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, right? So I really enjoy the opening of this film. Love how it opens up and sets the tone as far as the time frame. This is taking place in, I want to say, the early 60s, right? You got Elvis playing. You see the kids, the college kids. And then we establish that the villains in this film are the Russians. No more Nazis. And oh my God, that was one thing that made me so, like, just not want to see Dial of Destiny. Just going on a tangent, short tangent right here. Not only the other reasons that I previously stated, but just the fact that they brought back Nazis as villains. I'm like, how boring. And you know, the only reason why they did that is because it's the safest thing to do. Because if they had made anybody else a villain, it would have like been some kind of controversy, because today everybody's offended. I mean, even Russia was offended. I think this film got banned because the Russians were the villains. And it's like, what, dude? Come on. Go back to the 60s, man. Put some context. Historical context. Who were the enemies of America? The Cold War. Russia. So what's the big deal? Like, we're just depicting reality over here. You know, you were our enemies at that time. So what's the big deal, right? Yeah, so whatever. Enough of Dial of Destiny. So I like how this opening scene establishes the time frame, establishes that the Russians are the villains, and I like that, man. And I like this whole like mind control thing that the main villain wants. And the main villain was played exceptionally well. I actually enjoyed Cate Blanchett's performance. She's a great actress. I loved her, and I love this whole mind control thing because it reminds me of The Manchurian Candidate, right? The film of Frank Sinatra that was about the communist brainwashing former American soldiers to become agents. Hey man, that's where the Winter Soldier got it from the Marvel films, the Captain America films, from the Manchurian Candidate. And some of this stuff is based on reality, man. You all should go Google MK Ultra right now. Google MK Ultra, and that's all I'm going to say. All right. So I really like that the main villain, Cate Blanchett's character, she wants this power to control the mind, the psychic powers, because that's kind of, it's a throwback to me to the Manchurian Candidate and stuff. And we go to the same storage facility where the Ark is staying at. When we saw the Ark put away in storage at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, so we're going there, and she's and she's trying to get the remains of the Roswell alien from the famous Roswell Area 51 alien crash. This is straight up. It's like a modern American myth right there, right? So I love all this stuff, man. So I don't know why people found it ridiculous, because I found it to be fun. This was fun, seeing Indiana Jones thrown into this time frame and thrown together with this subject matter. It was a lot of fun. And Indiana Jones, man, Harrison Ford, he just steps into the role like The Last Crusade ended yesterday. It was great. And I really enjoyed his friend, his comrade, Mac. I thought this was a great character. Loved how he was always double-crossing him. Loved the banter that goes back and forth between them. It was really enjoyable. And for the most part, this film had a great cast. I mean, you have John Hurt as Harold Oxley. Shia LaBeouf did a good job as Indiana Jones' son. As I mentioned, Cate Blanchett did an exceptional job. And seeing Carrie Allen return as Marion Ravenwood was great. Even though I have a little bit of some reservations as far as execution, because later in the film, things started to feel a little kind of cheesy as far as how their romance was rekindled. It felt forced, and we'll talk about that. But I enjoyed the actors, right? There wasn't a single performance in this film where I was like, oh, that's terrible acting. I enjoyed everybody for the most part. I really did. And the action that takes place in this warehouse was also great. I loved it. I mean, it's obviously not Harrison Ford doing everything, all these stunts and everything. But for the most part, I thought the integration between Harrison Ford, who actually tried to do as best as he could some of these stunts, and the integration of a stuntman or CGI, it was well done. It doesn't look as fake as the trailers that I've seen for Dial of Destiny. It was pretty well done, and I really enjoy, like, when you're having that chicken race, or the face off between Indiana Jones driving I don't know what it's called. It was like a truck, military truck, and then Mac and the Russians are driving their military truck, and Mac is like, you don't know him, kind of saying, like, you don't know how crazy this dude is. He's not going to get out of the way, right? That was really enjoyable. And I also loved how that action sequence eventually ended up with Indiana Jones fighting that big, beefy Russian dude. And they end up on that rocket. So, like, they end up in this facility. And again, it's a great reference to the time. Great historical context. The time of the Cold War, the weapons, the arms race, right? The experimentation with rockets and space travel and space exploration and the atom bomb and things like that. I really love that. And when they get on that rocket, that was a great action sequence. It was really well executed, in my opinion. Up until we get into the infamous refrigerator sequence, right? So, yes, this refrigerator sequence was ridiculous, but not in theory, right? I just think they got way too over the top with it and needed to just restrain themselves, man. Because when the atom bomb blows up and Indiana Jones is in the refrigerator and it goes flying and they have some Looney Tunes sound effect going, and then it crashes and then he falls out, like, that was straight up a cartoon, man. That did not feel real. But I was on board all the way up until that sequence. I was up on board for that. From the fight to the warehouse, to when Indiana Jones is fighting the big Russian dude on the rocket, to when Indiana Jones goes into that fake town where they're gonna run the atom bomb test, and he's all like, oh my, and you could feel the anxiety, you could feel the despair. What do I do? Because he knows what's gonna happen, right? They're gonna drop an atom bomb on him, right? And then he gets into the fridge, and then that's when it was like, okay, now it's too far-fetched, way too far-fetched. What they should have done is just tone it down, man. They should have just had Indiana Jones go into some underground bunker, right? During this time, there was a lot of underground bunkers on military bases, right? So he could have just gone under there and you could drop your atom bomb, have your atom bomb sequence, and Indiana Jones survives, right? Would have been perfectly fine. Would have been awesome. But to have the refrigerator go flying in the air and have this Looney Tunes sound effect going, and then Indiana Jones just falls out of it and looks at the at the bomb going off. Like, dude, bro, you would like literally like disintegrate because of the heat, dude. Or you'd be dead because of the impact of flying miles. Because the only way you're going to survive an atom bomb like that is if you're miles away from it. So did he like fly miles away that when he landed and fell out of the fridge? I mean, whatever. The whole sequence is just dumb, right? They blew it. Too over the top, too cartoonish, and I totally understand why some people loathe this sequence. I totally do. But like I said, I enjoyed it all the way up until when he got into the fridge. I was laughing when he came across that fake town where they were going to drop that atom bomb. And I thought it was well executed as far as Harrison Ford's, his acting and Indiana Jones's reactions. It was great. But every time I see that refrigerator, I'm just like, oh my God. And you know what? That is probably, for the most part, the only thing that I didn't like for the first 2/3 of this film. Because everything else I really enjoyed, right? So after that ridiculous refrigerator sequence, Indiana Jones gets visited from some men in black, presumably CIA, FBI, whatever, right? Probably, it's probably FBI, right? I think if it was, actually, you know what? It's difficult to say. Probably CIA. Yeah, probably CIA, I want to say. So he gets visited from CIA agents. They give him a hard time and all this stuff. And we find out that Indiana Jones, he fought in, North Korea or something, like in numerous wars, right? And these agents don't trust him. Because the whole thing is that there was Russians on American soil and they're up to no good. Is Indiana Jones a spy? Whatever. So they don't trust him, right? That's established in the scene. Then Indiana Jones goes back to his teaching profession at his university. And we find out that basically that this investigation about him and his possible connections with the Soviets, it's jeopardizing his career. And I think the dean of the school even resigns because Indiana Jones has to take a leave of absence, right? And the dean of the school, he resigns, right? Because he knows that's not right? He knows Indiana Jones is an honest, forthcoming individual, and he's his friend, right? So the original guy, what was his name? Marcus, right? Marcus has passed away. I think that was his name, Marcus. He passed away. It's also established that Indiana Jones's father, who was played by Sean Connery, passed away. You see the photo. They use some expository dialogue to talk about that. And you know what? I have no problem with that because they passed away because of old age. Indy's older now. So, people don't live forever, unfortunately, right? But that's okay. And then Indiana Jones runs into his son. His son is seeking him out, right? Because his mother has disappeared, as well as John Hurt's character, Harold Oxley, I believe that's his name. So he disappeared. His mother disappeared, and we find out that his mother is Marion Ravenwood from the original Indiana Jones film, Raiders of the Lost Ark. So that was very interesting, and we're seeing it all come together. And there was a nice little action sequence here that was humorous when they were at the I don't know what you want to say, the cafe or the diner, and then Mutt Williams, who is actually Indiana Jones's son. You can totally see that Mutt is borrowing imagery from Marlon Brando's character in the film The Wild One. And, I thought it was a nice little tribute. And there's also like this whole little like greasers versus the jocks thing going on in the scene. And I thought it was humorous how the girlfriend punched Mutt in the face. That was hilarious, like, hey, that's my boyfriend. Like, that was great stuff. Great humor. And then the bike chase with the Russians chasing Mutt and Indy, and they end up going on the campus of the school. That was great stuff. That felt like something out of the original Indiana Jones films. It was well done. And I just want to say John Williams does another exceptional job with the score to this film. This guy can never do any wrong, and he's totally acting like, again, like Last Crusade happened yesterday, and he's able to just step right in and pick it up and deliver some epic music that's appropriate to the film. It's appropriate for Indiana Jones, and I really enjoyed it. So, yeah, this was a great sequence, and then we end up tying it all into this new adventure in which Indiana Jones and his son Mutt go to Peru. And this is where I start really like enjoying the film. So they go to Peru because the missing character, John Hurt's character, Oxley, he is obsessed with the crystal skull, right? And there appears to be some kind of connection between the skull and his disappearance. So they go to Peru because that's where his last whereabouts were. And it's great. We see the Nazca lines of Peru. I've always wanted to see these myself in real life. Hopefully one day I'll be able to make the trip. And they go to the prison where Oxley was at originally before he disappeared. And they see these crazy writings on the wall. And apparently he went crazy. So this leads them to go to this archaeological site. I guess you want to call it a burial site or temple or something. And they go there and they have like these guardians that are like hiding. I don't know. It's a little far-fetched. I mean, what are these guys? They're just like chilling in the walls the whole time waiting for Indy. Maybe they are. But, there was stuff like this also in the original Raiders of the Lost Ark film. I mean, it's like you can't be nitpicky with some of this stuff. Sometimes you just got to let it go and enjoy the ride, enjoy the film, right? I mean, I don't expect these films to be 100% realistic, So for these I guess you want to say, I don't know whether to call them guardians or something, but they're these Peruvian characters that are like hiding in the walls, and they try to kill Indy and Mutt using those poison darts, and then Indy's able to spit the dart back into the dude's mouth. That was pretty brutal. That was one brutal kill I could give this movie that was similar to the stuff that goes down in the original Indiana Jones films. Even though, like I said, here things feel a lot more family friendly than they did in the original 3 films, right? But anyway, they go into this burial site and they find the grave of Francisco de Orellana, which contains the crystal skull. And when they leave the skull, ultimately Indiana and Mutt are captured by the Soviets, who have been onto them from the very beginning. And once they're captured, they run into Marion Ravenwood, and it's finally revealed that Marion basically has been hiding from Indiana Jones, or never told him after all these years that Mutt is his son, right? And this is where the film starts to go a little downhill, in my opinion, because the humor, the exchange between Marion and Indy, it's a little cheesy. Right? For me, it's a little cheesy, even though it's great to see them reunited. But at the end of the day, as much as I love seeing Marion return, I think having one old timer was enough because seeing these two try to rekindle their romance, it just felt, I don't know, it just felt forced. It really did. Like they haven't seen each other in decades, and already she's like head over heels over him, right? And she's starting to like fall for him, and he's saying these things like these other women weren't you, and then she's looking at him all dreamy eyed, and for me it comes across cheesy, man. It comes across cheesy. It comes across forced. I would have much rather had it been them just bickering and fighting, and then like maybe at the very end they relent and they start to show a little bit of affection towards each other. But it's like almost right away they admit like, oh, I should have never left you and all this stuff, and I'm just like, nah, man. And it comes across twice as cheesy because they're old, right? And I'm sorry if that offends people or that sounds ageist or whatever, ageism, but I'm here to tell you that we want to see, the average person wants to see our characters youthful and full of vigor, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with being old, but I'm just saying the execution here feels kind of corny. And I think the film would have been better without Marion Ravenwood. I think so. I think just one old-timer, Indy, and his son going on this adventure would have been fine, right? I don't know if tying Marion Ravenwood into this really was necessary, even though I like seeing Indiana Jones marry her and having their little happily ever after ending. I mean, it felt good, right? But what I'm saying is that the humor is corny, right? And then right here specifically is when the film starts to feel too family friendly, right? And this is in contrast again with the original 3 Indiana Jones films, right? Where they were pretty hardcore, man, with the violence, with the directing. The directing was pretty gritty and stuff. Even though you could say it was an adventure and you could say you watch it with your family, but I felt like that was second, right? I feel like the filmmaking sensibilities that Steven Spielberg had at the time in the 80s was the priority, right? But here it feels like we're getting a little too family friendly, and the film suffers because of that. And since I mentioned the filmmaking sensibilities of Steven Spielberg, I just want to address how a lot of people that don't like this film love to blast George Lucas over this, right? They say George Lucas is the reason why, because it was his idea to have the aliens. But like I said, I have no problem with the aliens, right? But for me, if anyone's to blame, not for the failure, because I don't think this film's a failure, but if anyone's to blame for, let's say, the faults in this film, it's Steven Spielberg. He's the one that directed. These are his artistic decisions as far as shot compositions, how he wants these shots to be executed, all that stuff, man. You know, it's Steven Spielberg. Oh my God, he's probably like one of the top 3 most successful filmmakers in America, right? He can get whatever he wants. And so if you don't like what you see, then to me, that's Steven Spielberg's fault, not George Lucas. Right? I actually like George Lucas's contribution. I like this story. I really do. What I don't like, or what I do have some reservations, are in some of the directorial decisions, right? Things start to feel too cartoonish, right? Some of the humor feels forced and kind of corny, right? Some of the jokes don't land for me. Like there was one joke that I still scratch my head about, and it feels kind of weird. Like, so there's actually 2, right? One that I just don't understand is when like Indy's trying to cut the rope behind. He's tied up with Mutt and Marion in the back of this truck, and they're like being transported by the Russians, and then he like he's cutting himself. Oh, he's cutting the binds of his behind his hand, and then like you hear this rip, like a rip, like, and then there's like this exchange. It's this weird exchange between him and Mutt, and I don't understand like what's going what I don't understand the joke. I don't understand the punchline. Like, did he cut his pants or something? Please explain it to me, because I've always wondered, like, what the hell was going on there, right? Weird stuff, right? And then there's this joke that felt really forced. And I didn't. It's supposed to be funny, right? Because Indiana Jones does not like snakes, right? That's been the running joke for the longest time. Indiana Jones hates snakes, right? Because he was kind of traumatized when he was young, as seen in the beginning of The Last Crusade, right? But when they're falling in the quicksand and Indy is like the last one to get out, and then Mutt pulls out this big snake, right? And then he's like, oh, use the snake as a rope or something, right? And then Indy is adamant, don't call it a snake, don't call it a snake, say rope, say rope. I mean, I feel like in theory it's supposed to be funny because Indiana Jones hates snakes. But the way that scene is executed is just like, man, it feels bad. Like, I just didn't find it funny. It felt really strange in its execution. The joke didn't land for me. And it felt like a waste of time. It felt like you could have cut that stuff out, man. So after Mutt, Marion, and Indy are reunited, but wait, just really quick. Before that, Kate Blanchett's character, the villain, tries to mess with Indiana Jones. So Indiana Jones he has this exchange with her, and she's talking about how she wants these psychic powers and that the skull is able to give her these psychic powers to read people's minds, to control people's minds. Indiana Jones scoffs, he laughs at her, calls it bullshit. But then, you see that there's this power, right? It's exemplified by the skull. There's definitely something going on because it was tormenting Indiana right here, right? So that was very interesting. They try to escape. Mutt makes an attempt to cause a distraction. They try to escape. They get captured again. I forgot to mention that the Oxley character is insane. John Hurt's character, he's crazy. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. So the protagonists end up going to this ancient mythical city called Akator, right? And the reason why we go there is because the villain, played by Kate Blanchett, and I think her name is Irina or something. But anyway, she believes that the crystal skull is alien in origin and that it came from this mythical city called Akator, right? Akator, rather. And our heroes are being transported there, and then ultimately what happens is they end up escaping, and then it ends up becoming like a race to the city of Akator, right? A race between the villains and the heroes, right? Now this right here, this race, or this chase rather, is the worst part of the entire film, and it's because it just looks like a CGI crap fest. Right? This is the infamous Shia LaBeouf swinging from vine to vine like Tarzan with some monkeys. This is the infamous Shia LaBeouf fencing Kate Blanchett's character with his legs split open between two cars. And I mean, it was just really just terrible. I don't know why Steven Spielberg decided to film it like this. Like, why are we going for this aesthetic? Why are we going for all this over-the-top, ridiculous action? Like, it would have been so much so much better, right? If you had just toned it down. Like, just give me a simple shootout between two cars in the middle of the rainforest, man. Like, that's it. That's all I need, right? Just a simple, nice action sequence with practical effects, real lighting from the sun, no fake CGI crap, and it would have been fine. No one would have complained, but I felt like, what's with this whole compulsion to do this over-the-top, cartoonish action sequence stuff? Like, it was unnecessary. You didn't need to do that. And it's the worst aspect of the entire film. Like, it just feels fake. It looks fake. I don't like it whatsoever. The only thing I really like about this sequence is the big Russian dude getting eaten up by those ants, right? And even then, that was a little far-fetched when the ants start to crawl upon themselves to get to the villain, and she has to squash them with her boots. I mean, it was like it's just, there's a lack of restraint when it comes to the action in this particular section of the film. It's an overindulgence. Like, somebody should have been there and been like, look, you got to tone it down. This is too over the top. You have to think about the other Indiana Jones movies and how this is going to fit into the continuity as far as aesthetic. If we go over the top and start having this over the top, crazy, cartoonish action sequences, it's not going to mesh well with the other films. It's not going to feel like an Indiana Jones film. And, I can't believe nobody said that, right? Or maybe they did, and Steven Spielberg vetoed the idea, or even maybe it was George Lucas. Who knows? Whatever. But after this, I did enjoy the whole 3 drops, right, from the waterfall. So each drop from the waterfall just got more grandiose. It got more epic, and that was great to see. I remember seeing that in the theater, and the audience that I was with thought it was hilarious and a total blast. And I thought that was totally something that would have been in an Indiana Jones film, right? So our heroes make it to the city of Akator. And there's like some indigenous folks there, and they're able to unlock the whole hidden city in the temple. And when they get there, the villains show up also simultaneously. So initially we thought that the protagonists, Indy, and our other heroes got there first, but the Russians get there a little bit before them or at the same time. I can't quite remember, but anyway, they're there, right? The Russians are there. The villain, Irina, is there. And she ultimately just wants this power that these alleged aliens or interdimensional beings, is what they're officially calling them, quote unquote, interdimensional beings, meaning they're not from space, they're from another dimension, whatever. And apparently the reason why they went that route is because Steven Spielberg was tired of doing aliens, but George Lucas wanted to do aliens. So this was like his little spin on that idea to get Steven Spielberg to agree to do it. But it's like, come on, bro. They're aliens, man. Get over it. For real. And so Irina wants the power, this psychic energy or whatever from these aliens, or the remains of these aliens, because apparently this crystal skull that they've had the whole time is part of a set, right? So you have it was 10 aliens sitting in a circle, kind of like some Knights of the Round Table thing. And this was the only crystal skull that was missing from the remains of these aliens sitting in this round table kind of thing, or this circle. She puts the skull back, or I can't remember if it was her or Indy, but whatever. She basically gets what she asked for. And I like that. I thought this was a great execution of the villain, man. A good way to take her out, because she's like, show me everything. And then it's kind of like the aliens, they kind of reanimate themselves, right? They come back to life. And then you see that one alien look at her kind of, and it's conveyed oh, you want to know everything? All right, I'll let you know everything. And then it's too much for her, right? It's way too much knowledge, way too much information, right, for a human being to handle. And what ultimately happens is she just her head explodes, or she fries her brain, her eyes burn out, right? And she's a goner after that, right? And I love that. And it's kind of a throwback. It reminds me of the woman, the main woman, Indy's love interest, I guess you want to say, in The Last Crusade, when she wants that Holy Grail, right? She wants it, and she can't stop reaching for it. And then what happens? Her glove slips off, and then she falls and dies because she couldn't let it go. She wanted it so bad. and she couldn't let it go, and it was her demise. And I felt like this was very similar, and I appreciated that. So ultimately, Indy is able to get the hell out of there before the whole temple or whatever underground city collapses on itself. And you know what I thought was cool was when Indiana Jones says that they were archaeologists, these aliens or these interdimensional beings, rather, that they were like archaeologists, because when they went into the underground city or the underground temple, whatever you want to call it, they had all these relics from all over the world, a fortune. And that one character that was always double crossing Indy, he wanted all this gold, right? He wanted all the wealth, right? But he couldn't let it go. Mac, yeah, that's his name, Mac. Mac wanted the gold, and very similar to what happened to Cate Blanchett's character. Like, he just couldn't let it go, and he didn't make it in time, and he ended up getting sucked into the other dimension and ultimately dying. Right? So I thought that was cool, man. You know, why? Because it's a message. This is a message, right? It's a message about greed. And I enjoy that. And then ultimately the film ends with a nice send-off for Indiana Jones. We get a happily ever after. He gets married. It's inferred for a little bit that maybe Mutt Williams will take up the mantle, but then Indy's like, nah. And he snatches back the hat, and then you hear John Williams' classic music playing. And I thought it was a beautiful way to end the film. And, you know, I ultimately had a great time, and I loved it despite this film's shortcomings. And there is a good handful of them, right? But for me, it didn't break the film. I still enjoyed it. I still enjoyed seeing Indiana Jones again. I felt like it was a nice, fun, wholesome adventure, even though it was too family friendly in comparison to the other previous 3 Indiana Jones films. But I still enjoyed it. I really did. I think Harrison Ford did an outstanding job, because even though he was older, he didn't come across as too old. It was perfect, right? And I hear a lot of the criticisms about Dial of Destiny is that he's just too old now, right? I feel like if you were going to make a follow-up to this film, Crystal Skull, why not do it 3 years after Crystal Skull? This came out in 2008. How come the follow-up didn't come out in 2011? Why are we waiting 15 years, man? You know, I mean, like, come on. Like, I don't want to see Indiana Jones when he's like 85. Like, I'm cool, man. This was perfect, though. This was perfect. This was done just in time before Harrison Ford got too old for the role. Got too old before you felt like it was unbelievable that he's doing all this jumping and diving and all this stuff. So, Indiana Jones himself saved this movie. And I love the ancient astronaut theory. So that's why I love this movie, even though it has faults. And I got to give it a B- because I feel like it's enjoyable. In my opinion, it's not the travesty that the hardcore Indiana Jones fans want to claim it is. It is not. And for a lot of people, it's not. You got to remember, this film was a financial success, and this film was praised critically, right, by the top critics at the time, right, and still to this day, right? So I think it's just kind of like the whole prequel thing with the Star Wars. It's like, yeah, you got that very loud fan base, but overall, there's people that like this movie, and I'm one of them. So I got to give this film a B-. And if you love Indiana Jones, I mean, give it another shot, right? That's all I got to say. And I can tell you this. I know that it's infinitely better than Dial of Destiny. Even though I haven't seen Dial of Destiny, I just know it is, because it wasn't made by Disney and it wasn't made by Kathleen Kennedy. So I already know. So we got this whole prequel thing happening again, where it's like now the prequels are more appreciated because the Disney trilogy came out and it was awful. So now people appreciate the prequels. Well, I feel like the same thing is going to happen to Crystal Skull. People are going to appreciate it more now that we have Kathleen Kennedy's version of Indiana Jones, right? So again, thank you guys for listening to this review and in-depth analysis. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and share. Take care, people. And last but not least, one love.